Almost went. I got married yesterday. Passport. Almost went. But then I had kids.
It is. When do you take the bench? Today? Today's your first day?
Today.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I went by your courtroom today.
Do what?
I went by your courtroom.
You did? Probably wasn't in there.
No, still had torture.
Yeah, they're still got that on there. I'm gonna have to whip some people into shape. You know?
You know Jeannie Shepherd?
So she retired before
Before you ever came along?
Yeah.
Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on that? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, public comment. Anybody here from the public that'd like to speak to something that's not on the agenda?
Mayor Seminole and council members.
Can you state your name and address?
Yes. My name is Ruth Rodden. I live at 605 Heritage Drive.
Thank you.
I've lived in Baldwin City since 2016, when Glenn was hired as city administrator. I retired last April and found myself with time to volunteer for various projects here in the city. One of the projects I've worked on is the mural project, which was initiated in 2016. As you know, we have 4 murals around town. All of the murals have been funded by various means. We do not have a reliable funding source for murals. Our current mural project is underway and will be in the offices of the chamber. Since the mural is inside rather than outside, funding is rather limited. This mural will depict points of interest that will benefit both residents and visitors to our city. The mural will be created in February and March, and with a dedication planned for April. The cost to produce this mural is $1,000. We are seeking community donations to fund its production. I believe that we who are related to or part of the city government have an opportunity to show leadership by funding this project. Glenn and I are pledging a matching donation of up to $500. We will match donations from you up to a total of $500. Checks can be made payable to the Lumberyard Art Center. I will be happy to accept your check, match it with a check of my own, and deliver it to the Lumberyard Art Center. I will entertain any questions, and thank you for your time.
Well, I think that's very generous of you and Glenn to do the matching funds. Very generous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Anybody else like to speak during public comment? All right, next, special reports and presentations. We will just get this out of the way now. Really? So this is City Attorney Blake Glover's last meeting. He was appointed, my first appointment on the city, for the city, back in, 2018?
Yeah.
January 2018. So he was my first city attorney to work for, my only city attorney to work for, or work with. So it's been a pleasure. We started when I had my company downtown. We were office mates, so that's how Blake and I met and became friends from there. And he was the first local attorney we had for quite a while in Baldwin City, so it was nice to have him. And as prior law enforcement, we got into plenty of discussions and debates and
Yes, we
everything
did.
else in between. So
Nope.
it's been a pleasure. But so I'd like to present Blake with a plaque of appreciation that he can hang in his new judge's chambers. Is that what you call it up there?
Yeah,
The chambers.
that works.
Okay. In appreciation for your years of service to the city of Baldwin City, Kansas, serving as the city attorney for 2018 through 2021. So thank you again for all your service.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Not used to it. Smile. Smile. All right, next item is new business, is appointments. I'm gonna read through the appointments real quick, and then I'll ask each person to come up and just kind of introduce themselves to the council. Council, feel free to answer or ask any questions. So Glenn Rodden for city treasurer, Shay Downing for city judge, Dakota Loomis, our previous city judge, for city attorney, Amber Packard for city clerk, Mike Patrick for police chief, and Terry Baker for fire chief. So I guess, unless you guys want me to ask Glenn to come up and introduce himself to all of you, we'll skip him. And we'll go to Shay. Shay, if you could step up and just introduce yourself and
Stuff on one, probably in the middle. There we go. Good evening, everybody. My name is Shay Downing. I am a practicing attorney. My firm has been around for about 70 years, but I personally haven't been practicing that long. My office is in Lawrence, and I primarily do criminal defense work and family law. I'm on the CJCC in Douglas County, which is how I've met several of you, including the chief. I know Blake fairly well, and Dakota also, and I will reveal secrets to you if you are interested.
No. No.
Just saying.
No.
Happy to answer any questions you have about me personally. I'm originally from Atchison, Kansas, so I'm from here. Most of my family is still close to there or here in Lawrence. And I think that's about it, unless you have questions of me, anybody?
well, I mean, there's one tidbit of information that I think should be discussed now, because it could become a conflict of interest for you on your judge position.
Casey,
What?
is this about coffee?
It's about Luke Bryan. So Shay became a fan of Baldwin when Luke Bryan came and did the farm tour concert, and ever since then, she is a mega fan of Luke Bryan. So if you ever have any Luke Bryan paraphernalia laying around,
That's true. See, Blake, okay. That is true. I am a huge Luke Bryan fan. I have seen him in concert a lot of times. I have been to lots of his concerts in lots of different places. Not all of them under my real name, thank you very much. And no, I am a huge Luke Bryan fan. I will not stand for any nonsense, Casey. He's fantastic, and he's a good human being, too.
I mean, it's not 90s country, it's whatever.
John Michael Montgomery, really? At a time like this? That is true. I am a huge Luke Bryan fan. That's fair.
Any questions for Shay?
Have you set the bench before?
Do what?
Have you set the bench before?
Yes, I do lots of pro tem in Lawrence. I cover for the judge there quite a bit, actually. I've also filled in once here. So I got to see the inner workings of your city court here, but yes.
All right, thank you, Shay.
Thank you.
Dakota, you're up next.
Hi, Casey.
How are you?
I also know all of Blake's secrets, and there's a lot of messages on texts and threads that you can share as well, so
No.
just ask, I'll share all the gifts.
I am a judge.
Wow.
Currently, I've been the, I think, city judge now since, February of 2018, so just after Blake. Have enjoyed getting to know Baldwin City through that process, but I grew up in Lawrence, in Douglas County, was born here, raised here, have spent a large amount of time between here and Baldwin City, between, coming down to parties at Baker or playing soccer here. So, I think also, Blake and I talked about this, I'm almost certainly going to be taking over his office space next to the fire department. So there'll be a physical presence here as well, should I be appointed. So I think that was one of the main issues that we discussed and wanted to make sure that was a continuation, so there's a physical presence here. My wife and I are also still looking at houses, on year 7 of looking at houses, and as Casey will tell you, we're looking at houses down here too, potentially, so there may be another attorney in Baldwin City, now that you got him on a bench up in Lawrence. So that's my position right now. If you have any questions for me about my background, any questions about roles before, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Any questions for Dakota?
Don't do it, Jerry.
Are you also a Luke Brown fan?
No, I am not. I cannot stand him whatsoever.
Some real hard-hitting questions.
So Dakota, again, was appointed when Blake was appointed city attorney. He was appointed city judge, so he's been with us for fully 4 years as city judge. They've revamped really our criminal justice system, I guess, per se, under the city, and made it a little cleaner operation, smoother, and all that stuff. So that it's worked really well for the last 4 years.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Dakota. I'll skip Amara unless anybody has further questions for her. And Mike is out on leave. And Mr. Baker. If anybody has questions for Chief Baker.
I think most of you know me. My name's Terry Baker. I've been on the Baldwin City Fire Department since 2007. I've been chief for almost 6 years, I think now. Kind of lost track. Anybody have any questions? Or I've lived in Baldwin for like 30 years now, so not you. I don't want you to ask me any questions today. But does anybody have any questions, or not you either? I knew you got something. What is it, Jerry?
I ain't gonna say it.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Terry.
All right, thanks.
So with that, any council discussions?
That was a question.
Any council discussion? Not, I will entertain a motion.
Is that all of them?
That's all.
I welcome them.
Huh?
I welcome all of them.
Good. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the mayor's appointments of city administrator, treasurer, city judge, attorney for the city, county clerk, police chief, and fire chief.
City clerk, I can.
I second.
He meant city clerk.
What did I say?
County clerk.
County clerk. No, we don't appoint that.
I second.
Jerry seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, Blake, you might stick around just for, I guess, the transition if.
Sure.
I want to see your flag.
Wow.
I'll have a seat back here with Colin Polk.
Okay. Next item under new business is city depositories. So this is an annual appointing our city depositories. We always do the 3 lenders, banks in town as the approved city depositories. Glenn, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It's like I said, it's a yearly appointment. We appoint all 3 of them as our official depositories.
Any questions on that?
Are there only 3 banks in town?
Correct, yeah.
that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint the 3 banks in town as our city depositories.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, council committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
I'm just kind of cover the notes that hopefully you guys had a chance to look at them in the council packet. The meeting we had in the budget and finance was solely around a meeting with the library leadership and looking for a way that if we brought the library into the city as a city entity, what would the impact on the city budget be? So the first thing we looked at was salaries, and then are there any efficiencies that we would gain by bringing them in, utilities, those sorts of things. So a lot of good discussion. The library brought some good data referencing, I think it was Lansing.
It was Lansing.
Lansing that had done this, so they kind of had a view of how they moved them in, and just looking at their employees, kind of where they were at, their job description, then moving them into the city salary schedule. Try to, in similar fashion to how Lansing did, what we came up with, what it looked like was that the increase from where they're currently at to where they would come in at, including, benefits, healthcare and those sorts of things, it was going to be about a $40,000 increase based on where they're at today versus what they would be the first year they came in. And that equals about $1 million. Estimated next year, assessed valuation, $40 million, thereabouts, it'll be about $1 million to get to $40,000. So if you remember, the library is capped by our ordinance at 4. And so if we brought them in, we would be in effect adding another $1 million to that as a minimum. So it kind of gets them to 5, which is the state cap. So I think what we decided in going through this process was there wasn't enough efficiencies, and the increase in salary was even more than they were actually trying to do on a gradual basis. So I think the conclusion we drew, obviously it's a council decision, was that it probably made more sense to let them stand as their own entity and look at the ordinance and doing something there. One of the other things that they brought up as a possible negative consequence was, they weren't sure whether they'd lose the Nichols annual grant funding, about $25,000. So that was an unknown. It may or may not be an impact that they didn't know at the time. So from a budget impact perspective, it looks like it would be more advantageous to let them operate independently like they have been. So the question then was, what kind of mill cap is available? As we talked in previous council meetings, we can just rescind it and they can go up to 5 per the state. Or we could do something in between. We could leave it where it's at 4. We could rescind it and let them go to up to 5, or we could do somewhere in between. And so some of the discussion that came up, and I think they were intrigued about, was something called a creative mill cap. As you see in the notes, it's really where the ordinance that we have would be amended that would allow the library to increase their mill levy a certain amount each year until they reach the cap of 5. And we just, for an example, we could amend the current mill levy cap to say you can increase, for an example, 0.2 mills every year. So 2023, they could go to 4.2, then 4.4, 4.6, and then at the end of 5 years, that'd be at the state cap. Then that ordinance would sunset, no longer have a need for that. So I think talking to them, that was intriguing. I think in their mind, it came close to meeting what they wanted to do from an operational salary perspective. Obviously need to run the numbers and take a look at what the assessed valuation is and what that would be. But so that was really where we left it. And it, again, needs to come back to the council. We need to make a decision so they can do some planning for 2023 as we go through this budget cycle. And did I leave anything out?
We're just verifying with the league on amending a charter ordinance.
As far as
Amending it versus.
amendment, okay. rescinding and creating the correct. Okay.
So,
So questions on any of that?
Mhm. Is there such a thing as a charter, or what do you call it? I don't have the proper word, but that the library goes on their own and they do their own
District.
district? Now, have you discussed that, or did you just discuss that and I missed it?
Yeah, I mean, it has been discussed. I don't know if it's discussed in the council meeting. I know it's been discussed at the Budget and Finance as a potential avenue. I think the key thing about that is,
That's the logo.
well, as a city entity, we cannot force that to happen.
No.
Right, so that's always available to them, but there's nothing we can do to make that happen. It has to be, what is it, petition by,
has to be petitioned, a percentage from outside the community has to
Right.
sign and a percentage from inside.
right,
Once that's completed, then it goes on the ballot, and it's voted by that district.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
then after that, I think some of the concern from talking to the library was the fact that amongst that district, then their board is elected from that district. Right now, it's an appointed board by the mayor, approved by the council.
So how's the library, people who run the library, how are they thinking about that, or have they thought about that?
They've talked about it, so I actually sit on their board, it used to land on our work session night, so I didn't get to go. But I went to their last one.
Well, how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it? I like the district model. I personally do. Again, like Scott said, I agree with Scott. We can't really force them to go in that direction.
No.
I think for me, I like the tiered approach better, just kind of the same way we've done our water rates and any other thing we needed to increase. So it wasn't a big cost of living, any change in people's cost of living on a holistic approach. So I like that. So that's why I think doing something in the middle would be the best avenue. And I know that the library board has also discussed that they're going to continue studying the district library because it would decrease our mill levy in town, may increase people that live outside of the community. Their mill levy is slight, but they'd end up getting more funding.
So you say,
We went through all that with them, but I think they want a sustained plan right now so they can start planning to give them some time maybe to go through that. I don't know. But I think the question in front of us is really what we want to do with that charter ordinance.
you said 1 mil is 40 grand, is that what you?
that's roughly what we expect next,
And that's, and right now we're setting it 4, the state allows 5, if I understood you correctly, and you want to make steps out of it, 2 by 2 by 1,
2 by 2 by 2 by 2, 5
years.
Yeah.
over a 5-year period.
I mean, that was what was discussed as an example.
And that would raise it 1.5 mils,
That would raise another extra mill.
Just be a mill.
or
But
2
then
mils.
on top of, no,
No, 0.2 mils. You go from
Oh,
4 to
0.2.
4.2, 6, 4, 6, 8, 10 over 5 years.
Okay.
and then so that's on top of the assessed valuation we continue to see as well. Because I think Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they got a roughly $6,000 more
Yeah.
for 2022 than what they did in 2021 because of our assessed valuations. So if that keeps increasing, they've indicated to us, and obviously they're governed by their own board, so we can't, control any of that per se, besides through this charter ordinance, that if it raises another $6,000 and 0.2 mils, let's say, brings in $5,000, their goal is $10,000 per year. So they're indicating to us, and from all our conversations, is that they wouldn't raise it to the 0.2 or whatever if they didn't need it. Does that make sense?
So we have to figure this out in
So what-
preparation for our 23 budget.
Correct.
Yeah, that has to be
So
finalized.
this is not something that's going to be done in the next 3 or 4 days, or?
No, this won't. It will be an agenda item for us to have a full discussion on it.
That's good, because this is a little bit out of my realm. And it's gonna take some time for me to,
Yeah, I intend to bring it back. I needed to get, again, all these folks in their positions because Dakota's gonna have to reach out to the league, verify some charter ordinance stuff for us. And then I intend to bring it back at the next meeting,
Corey, thank you for the word. Thank you for the term.
Yeah.
so we can have a full discussion with all that information.
I think part of the discussion we had in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting with them was there's still an interest by both groups to be a part of the city budget planning process. And that kind of starts now and ramps up, March, April, May, June. We have to have it finalized by the end of July, voted in August. So I think this ordinance decision, we need to probably make sometime in the next several months so they at least can start planning on whether it's up to 5, whether they're staying at 4, or whether it's somewhere in between. So I think that's why we wanted to try to get this decision done, but the whole budget planning process. And I think you brought it up at the last meeting when you asked the question, could the city provide funding for the library? And absolutely in the budget process. So as we have these discussions and they may be close enough to not having to raise the mill levy at all. And if we could kick in, I think last year was about $3,500 would have gotten them to the 10,000 they needed after the assessed valuation raised $6,500. So we'd have the opportunity as a city to, if we wanted to try to keep the mill levy flat, to find it in another place in the budget. But it just gives us more options, to help them out.
You're correct, I did do that in December.
Did.
That was before that was when I could still talk freely.
Still can.
No, I can't. You
It's
have
just
me-
recorded.
You have me handicapped.
Yeah. So I think the goal is to, I don't know what your goal is, but, sometime, I would say in February, try to make a decision.
Probably start having it on every
As
agenda.
a council about what direction we want to go. Just give them the most planning time they can get.
Well, I'm in favor of doing as much for them as I can.
All right.
That's it. The next meeting is this Friday at 7:45, second floor, 7:45 a.m., second floor, City Hall.
Community development, Corey.
We've not met since last meeting, tried to get one scheduled, had some folks quarantining and all that, so we're gonna try and get her going again this week.
All right. Say what date? I think on the 21st or whatever,
Well, we've been keeping it to a Monday, so that would
or no,
tentatively be the 24th. 24th. Yeah,
at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, second hall, City Hall, second floor, City Hall.
Public safety, Jerry.
I'm sorry?
Oh, you're on public safety.
We
Susan's not
had
here.
no meeting. Susan had
Something.
personal problems at home problems.
That works.
We had so I don't know anything about safety except look both ways when you cross the street.
That's a qualifying
Good
statement.
place to start.
All right, public works and utility, Julie.
Yeah, we met on the 13th and we covered a lot of things. If you looked in your packet, you saw.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, I'll go over them really briefly for the community so they'll know what's going on. Soon we'll begin to take bids for the Orchard Lane Road Crossing Project. The culvert is collapsing and it's a life-saving project, especially since that's a one-way in and one-way out. Pool chemicals have been received in anticipation of chlorine shortages for the summer, and the pump needs to be rebuilt or a new one installed. Inspections and repairs were done to the north water tower. Crews will do exterior restoration on the north tower in spring or summer, like they did on the other one. And my glasses are fogging up, so I can't see. The North Water Pumping Station controls will be back in 2 weeks. Anticipate 3 or 4 days to complete. There was a verbal bid of $3,750 to replace the transformer inside the building. New guidelines established at Oakwood Cemetery for monument foundations since their stones are going down into the ground. Snowplows and sanders are ready to go, and we've already seen that they've been used. We received 125 tons of road salt to help with that. Douglas County has agreed to contribute $25,000 towards the rebuild at 6th and High. And staff is recommending using concrete to do that as opposed to asphalt. Bids for 900 feet of water line for the North 400 Road. And discussed ordinances for contractors. All relays have now been replaced at the substation. Engineering study for the school district solar field. Extra fuel storage of 35 hours for the downtown public works and 50 hours at the power plant in case we have another February situation with the cold weather. We're still having problems with the water metering, and the new work truck should be in service this week, and the bucket truck has been pushed back to January. It's not expected, and it was pushed back to January. Now it's not expected until the end of 2022. And that's about all we talked about. So our next meeting is February 10th at 9 o'clock.
The only question I had, Julie, is for clarification. You discussed ordinances for contractors. What, can you kind of help me with that?
Yeah, we've had some concerns about contractors. They don't maybe,
Not fulfilling what appears to
But they
be the
don't-
obligations of their contracts.
yeah, they aren't following what they should do as far as what the city's concerned. When they build new houses, they aren't doing the things that they should be
The
doing.
water meter pit sometimes is set lower than what the final grade
Right.
ends up being. So then the city workers are having to come and raise
Gotcha.
that
Right.
thing. I think one of them was burying utility lines within
Right.
city right of ways, relocates within city
And
right of
one
ways.
incident where there was a valve buried, contractor said he didn't bury it. Our people went out, found it, dug it up and said, you buried it. What's happening in some of those situations is when they come in grading and stuff, they're covering up our pits and stuff. Which I know happens. And that was some of that discussion that took
Trying to
place
figure
there.
out how an ordinance would address some or all of that.
It's not an ordinance that I think that we need.
No.
It's a
Code enforcement?
It's when you do your contracts, you need to read the contracts to make sure you've got it covered in there is what you need to be done. Like clean up, and if they're not going ahead and finishing up what they need to do in 30 days, then you, after that 30-day period, you start charging them by day till it's done.
So do we have that in the code? Just, we need to,
We don't, and that's why we're wanting to do that. And also, it's like for the fiber lines that haven't been buried and should be. So we're trying to do some regulations for that.
There's Glenn and I talked about this a little bit. There is a problem that arrives with that she just mentioned, is suddenly we're trying to take control of what happens on private property. And I'm not too sure that we can do that.
so yeah, I think that's what it sounds like there's a host of different issues. Some we may not, but yeah, I think it's definitely not as cut and dried as putting something in place. I mean, if it's code enforcement, I don't know if there's penalties associated with that, but certainly, it's the economics of, are they allowed to do business in the city if they don't meet code? I mean, there's things like that.
I don't know if it's a code thing or not, Scott. What I think about is when they do this work, they've got to sign a contract of some sort. And in that contract, it needs to be read and studied, maybe by our council, to make sure that we got all the items covered. If they don't put it through, like she's mentioned, they don't run the cable over like they should, or in 30 days or so, then there's always places in a contract that you can say you have it done within 30 days. After 30 days, it's $75 a day from that point on.
Those contracts are between the entity and the land of the homeowner. I don't know where the city's involved in any of that.
It wouldn't be involved if it was a code.
No, but I think what Scott's saying is, I think what he's saying is, he feels that we can regulate in the city right-of-way area,
Right.
because we control that. But but once they cross that property line, going up to the citizen's house,
Yeah.
don't know if there's much regulation to do there, and that's something our council, again, I sent Glenn the list of items, but we held off because we were going through a transition of city attorneys. I didn't want to start Blake on
Right.
researching all this, and then we have a new city attorney take over, and we're starting all over again. So we just kind of put a hold on it till Dakota got placed, and then now he'll take it and research on quite frankly, what we can even do.
Yeah, I think that's the question. In code enforcement, is that the responsibility of the homeowner? Do they own the code violation, or does the person they had do the work on that? But I think that's what we gotta investigate, and it's gonna be, I think, all over the place depending on which issues they brought forward.
So I think the problem is
It's
that
gonna
the contractors put it in, and then if it's not placed properly, then.
So you guys are talking about two different things. You're talking about the water pit issue with the final grade, and I think Scott's talking about the fiber lines that aren't being
I'm
buried.
talking about it all. It's gonna vary
But
based
yeah.
on what we can do. That's different than,
That's different than the,
Correct.
than the
Right.
fiber lines.
yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was on water, but I went to cable. Sorry, Julie.
So no, I think, that's why I asked, 'cause I think it's gonna be a very complex issue. But what'll be interesting is to just have the list of what the city staff has highlighted or citizens have highlighted as
Okay.
issues they would like to see addressed, and I think then we go and say, well, we can't or shouldn't try to address these. These ones we can go address, and here's how we would go try to do that.
I can send that list to you.
That'd be great. So put it in the packet out there with this, and we'll all have it.
All right.
Anytime you become involved in any kind of construction where you're moving dirt, digging ditches and laying all that stuff, there's always situations.
Yeah.
And it's a different frog every time he jumps.
Yep.
Okay, staff comments.
Nothing further here.
All right.
And on number 5, if you've got it there, there was 2 of those that we just solved right there at the meeting. Number 5, I think, was one of them. Is that correct, Julie?
I don't have it up. What's
That's the
like?
one about the cemetery.
Oh,
We-
yes.
we
We
took care of
decided
that.
that would just be a policy. We didn't really need to go through.
And there was another one we did the same thing to, but I don't remember which one it was. Do you?
Not right offhand.
Anyhow, there were 2 of them that he had on his list that we resolved at the meeting. It was a good meeting,
Good.
a good meeting.
Looks like you've covered a lot for sure.
All right, I don't have any
My
more.
time's up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's it, man. Okay.
I didn't know you did that to us.
All right,
You handicap us and then you put us on a timer.
Yeah.
next, we have a request for an executive session tonight, to request that both Blake and Dakota, for transition reasons, be included in the motion.
I botched it last time.
I think it's written out for you.
Yeah, it is.
No, yours was during public comment. To present to the council.
Agenda item.
We didn't have one on there. I didn't know that we were supposed to.
Thought Glenn was gonna put it on the agenda.
Is it for the golf?
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll have you on
He gave the
first meeting in
report.
February.
What's that?
First meeting in February. Sorry, Paul.
I move that the city council will recess into executive session for the purpose of acquiring real property. The open meeting will resume in this room at,
Yeah, name the people.
yeah, I was,
Oh, okay.
okay. It doesn't have any.
Wood Clover, Dakota Loomis, and Rodney.
Blake Glover, Glenn Rodden, Dakota Loomis,
City Council.
and the
Mayor.
city council.
Okay.
So how long?
Probably what needs, start with 20 minutes.
20 minutes? so this open meeting will resume in this room at
Call it 8 o'clock.
about 20 till 8,
That's now.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
All right, it's been moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're in executive session.
Would you? That would be great, because that could change my routine. I mean, yeah. Should be on this now. Thanks. Oh, yeah.
Door closed.
Call the meeting back to order. Is there any action items from executive session?
We're doing it.
Somebody stole my chair.
It's up to you guys. You got,
I
somebody got a
move-
motion in second.
I move that we give negotiation abilities to Glenn to pursue land for the substation.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next item is adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes, we're adjourned.